All right, this is going to be a really cool video because this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I've had severe ADHD my entire life, and it started from a really young age. And for most of my life, I felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt like, because I didn't fit the standard that, doctors or teachers and things like that wanted in school, especially when I was young. It made me feel like something was wrong with me my whole life. And as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that ADHD is genuinely like a superpower. But it is hard to cope with. It does come with some negatives, especially when you're younger. So if you have a child or you are someone who is struggling with ADHD, especially school, and you're in like elementary school or even middle school and you're not doing very well with classes and whatnot, I'm hoping that you can watch this and take from my experience and just know there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to learn how to manage it, but there are traits that you have that will benefit you in the long run way more than you'll ever expect or know. You just have to learn how to manage it. I think it's important to mention that not everyone has the same struggles that have ADHD. There's a lot of different variables that come with it, like how severe it is, or if you have autism or something like that. I'm talking about some of these things in a generalized sense, but I want to share, the things that I think overall are a benefit to most people that have ADHD. So some of my story, I think it started when I was like 5 or 6. I was very, very young, and I really struggled in school. I could not focus on things. I was a very high energy kid, and there wasn't enough resources, especially in my opinion, for kids, especially boys that have ADHD in schools. Like there's not enough recess, there's not enough playtime, and those kind of things are really important because you need to be able to get your energy out if you're going to focus on things. And honestly, just sitting for 6 to 7 hours in a classroom just is like hell for people like us. And it can be really difficult to cope with. It makes you feel like something's wrong with you, just because you're not fitting the narrative that teachers or schools want, or even doctors. And even parents. Some parents, I think, aren't as supportive as they could be. So I personally always felt like I was 2 or 3 years behind, like developmentally, when it came to understanding concepts. I was smart. I was able to understand them and learn them, but the not being able to focus thing was really tough. And I felt that way all through almost until like probably my junior year of college. I just always felt like I was a little bit less developed for whatever reason my brain was. And I wasn't as good at understanding some things. I definitely didn't learn things as fast as other people. Definitely not a good test taker, things like that. But as I got older, it's almost like those limitations I had it felt like what happened was my brain matured. And as it started to mature, even though it was slower, it was like my intelligence and everything kind of slung shot forward. I became really, really good at school and just learning things that interest me and being able to hyper focus on things and learn lots of material very quickly and retain it. And that's something I'm really grateful for, but it was something that took a lot of practice. But I have some of the highest rates of ADHD that doctors have ever seen. I've seen 3 or 4 specialists, and every single test I've ever taken, I've always scored on the highest of the high. I'm talking there are a very few amount of people that have it as bad as I do. From the time I was 6 years old until probably my junior year of high school, it really affected my sleep. My brain was so hyperactive that I couldn't sleep. And I remember I would go to bed and I would watch the gas station lights down the road turn their lights on, and I would just lay there not sleeping, trying to sleep, until I would watch them turn the gas station lights off as the sun came up. It was very common for me to only get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, and I did for nearly probably 5 or 6 years. There was some nights where I would crash, obviously, because it's just your brain can't do that for that long. But most of the time, the majority of the nights I had, it was really difficult for me to sleep. But a benefit of it, of having a lot of energy, was that I was able to get a lot of stuff done, and I was able to do a lot of work even when I was tired. And it really benefited me in college because I put myself through school, and it took me overall, because I transferred schools and stuff, it took me about 7 years. And I also had enough credits. I was just 7 credits short of a master's degree because I changed my major a lot. There's a lot of other factors, and I'll talk about that too. But I could do an insane amount of work. I was very used to 17-hour days. It was just a norm for me. And I could do all of that on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and it was tough, but it was something that I could just do. And a lot of my friends, I think, would look at me and they'd be like, a lot of them were like, I don't know how you do it. And it's just because I have high energy. That was just a part of how my brain works, and part of how ADHD works. I think you're just wired differently. You're wired with more energy. And that's something I'm really grateful for. And the cool thing is I noticed this especially after turning 30. I turned 30 a few years ago, and I've realized how a lot of my friends and other people my age, they really struggle with energy and doing things. And I still, to this day, have energy. Like, I still can work, get 4 or 5 hours of sleep and do a 16-hour day and be okay. Luckily, my insomnia and things like that have gotten better as I've aged. But it's apparent to me that that is a big benefit to have in life, and I think it's something that will serve you very well. So especially if you have really, really high levels of ADHD. So I'm going to name some common struggles that people with ADHD have. So a big one is poor working memory, time blindness and procrastination, difficulty focusing on boring tasks, emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitivity, feeling overwhelmed in structured systems. So something I also struggle with is dyslexia. I'm undiagnosed dyslexic, I feel, but I really struggle with my left and rights, my D's and B's my whole life, and I think that that's something that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with. Lower levels of dopamine activity in general and how it can affect your life. So because you have lower levels of dopamine, you're things like procrastination can happen, even addictive tendencies, seeking extra stimulus or things that increase your dopamine levels. And I was the type of person that I would always seek highly stimulating environments. So for me, EDM music, stuff like that, high pace, high energy things, because it just is what felt normal to me. It's my brain just felt relaxed in those environments because there was so much going on, but I feel like my brain was really good at processing it. And it just felt almost more natural for me. And I know there's other people on the other end of the spectrum where, especially if you have anxiety and stuff, those type of environments are not that's not a good thing for you. You don't like it and you feel uncomfortable. And that's why ADHD is so interesting, because it really does affect everyone differently. But a big thing with dopamine deficiency is that boring tasks can actually feel painful. There's a lot of times where I just don't want to do something, or if I have to do stuff, it actually hurts to do it. It's so boring, and that I just didn't want to do it, and I really had to force myself to do it, especially a lot of homework in college or reading and things like that. And I think that that's a common thing that people struggle with. And I think that it's really valuable and important to understand that there's nothing wrong with you. Once you accept yourself for who you are, you just have to accept that you are different, but different is good, in my opinion. And just because you don't fit into what schools or doctors or teachers, you don't fit those molds that they want you to fit in, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. I really do believe that neurodivergent people and people with ADHD in general, they're here to change the mold. They're not here to conform to it. And now that I've talked about some common struggles that people have when it comes to ADHD, let's talk about the hidden strengths we have. And the biggest one, I think, one of the biggest ones is the ability to hyper-focus on tasks. I can get so locked into a task, and I'm sure if you have a kid that has it, for me it was Legos, building Connects, Bionicles, things like that, or just outside projects, crafting, things like that. You have the ability to lock in on topics and do deep dives on them and learn an insane amount in a short amount of time, and that really is a superpower. And I do believe that you can learn how to mold that and almost channel it into other things, even things that are boring. It is harder, but that is by far one of the biggest benefits of ADHD. Another big one is outside the box creativity. I really believe that most people with ADHD are just way more creative. We have more creative minds because they're constantly going. It's our brain is a network of neurons that's just constantly firing and thinking about things. And most of the more creative people I've met in my life, they tend to have ADHD. And there's so much value in creativity, there really is, and the world needs more of it. And a lot of people aren't born with that baseline level of creativity that you have, and that really is a blessing. That is something you should be grateful for, because I think creative projects and tasks just come more naturally to us because it's what interests us. And creativity is really important to society. Another great strength, like I mentioned earlier, is having high energy in general and just having more energy to do more things with your life. That's been very apparent in my life. Another good strength is good intuition and emotional depth. I do think that people with ADHD tend to be like on the more sensitive side. I think they're a little bit more emotionally in tune with themselves, and that is a really great benefit. It can be like a double-edged sword, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but being like having a higher level of emotional awareness and empathy, I think is a common trait and a common strength you see with people that have ADHD. And that's why you're able to create more genuine friendships and just be like more authentic in yourself. For me, it almost feels like painful if I'm not doing that, like if I'm not being true to that. And I think a lot of people that have that like emotional depth with ADHD, especially like when I was younger, it was something that I thought was like a problem, or like something that was, like it honestly was kind of hard to cope with at times because I know I was more emotional. But as you get better and you learn practices to like help manage it, it becomes a really, really like something that you will be really, really grateful for. It's one of the things that I am the most grateful for by far. Another great strength is quick thinking in chaotic situations and strong instincts. And I really like the idea, like I've heard it explained this way. In hunter-gatherer societies, the hunters were probably people that had ADHD. And I just think that's really true. Like growing up in Wyoming, I spent a lot of time outside. My family, they were outfitters. And so I spent a ton of time. I basically grew up outside. I basically grew up camping. And one thing that I was always very good at was like my sense of direction. I can pinpoint little landmarks no matter how long the hike is. It's like I will know how to get home. And I think because people with ADHD are wired for like higher stimulation, that's why I think like people in the military or police or people that work chaotic jobs, paramedics, things like that, they're better at thinking in the moment and just like reacting to what needs to happen. And I think it's possible that a big reason for that is because they have some of these people have ADHD. I just like this example because I think it's very fitting. Like I really think that a lot of people, like if you think about hunter-gatherers and tribes back in the day, I could definitely see people that were a little bit wired with like ADHD more than likely were the hunters. They were more than likely were dealing with chaotic situations, high stimulant, but all like high stimulating spaces, but also like the chaos that comes with that. And also like when you're hunting, you're moving a lot and you have the energy to move a lot. So I know it's not like a hard science, it's just like a theory, but I do think it fits. And another great strength of ADHD are higher levels of empathy and pattern recognition. And now that we know like what some of the common strengths are, let's talk about why, like some parts of ADHD that I think are double-edged swords. Because a lot of people with ADHD tend to be a little bit more emotional, they have a higher level of emotional sensitivity, a higher level of emotional intensity, especially when you're young. So like a weakness or like the shadow of it would be like you take criticism personally, feel misunderstood, and spiral easily when emotions get overwhelming. But when you're strong with it and you learn to like cope with it, the strength you get is a strength of having emotional intensity is that you care deeply, love fiercely, and have powerful empathy that fuels connection and authenticity. Another double-edged sword is hyperfocusing. So like the negative side of it is that sometimes you get so focused on a task that like you lose track of time. Like there's been a lot of times when I get locked into a project or something, I won't even eat for like 8 hours, sometimes 12. Like I just won't eat because I'm so locked in. And that can be a problem sometimes for relationships or even basic needs like eating and sleeping. But a huge strength of it is that you enter flow states more quickly and you can produce insanely high quality work in a short amount of time. It's kind of like creativity on overdrive. Another double-edged sword is nonlinear thinking, and this is a hard one for me. This is something that I still struggle with even to this day. You have a difficulty following step-by-step instructions or routines. Misplacing things. If I don't put my like wallet and phone in the exact same spot on my counter when I get home, it will be lost. Like that is just a guarantee. But how it can be a strength is that you connect ideas that other people don't or can't, and I think it's also because of that higher level of creativity that you have too. I tend to think that people with ADHD are more innovative, abstract, and can solve complex problems in unique ways that other people just would struggle to do. And now this is the part of the video where I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can manage your ADHD and the things that I've done, especially if you have a really high level of it. And one of the first things and one of the biggest things you can do is exercise. You need to exercise. You need to move your body. You need to, it doesn't have to be going to the gym. It doesn't have, it just has to be something where you're doing some sort of physical exertion so that you can get the energy out. This will also help with sleep. Obviously, a tired body, it helps your brain also be tired. But yeah, like figure out what it is that you like to do, rather that's swimming, tennis, pickleball, surfing, snowboarding, longboarding, whatever it is. Figure out a fun way or something that you enjoy doing that can where you can exert a lot of physical energy. Another thing you can do to help manage it is just like accept that you are different, and that can be kind of like hard to do, but just like accept that these are things that you have. Your brain is different. Your brain is neurologically different than other people, and that's okay. Like it's a strength. Like it really is a superpower, and you don't want to and honestly, like fitting the mold is boring anyways. Like genuinely, like the reason and one of the coolest things about life, in my opinion, is that, and what makes life unique is that everyone is different. If everyone was the same, it would be so boring. But people like us, we tend to shake that mold up, and it's really cool. And it's just so but you also don't want to let it define you or put you in a cage or a box, using it as an excuse, oh, well, I can't do this stuff because of ADHD or whatever. That's not true either. You can. It's just a matter of managing it. But accepting that you are different and seeing that as a strength is a really good thing. Another really good thing you can do is find a creative outlet. I do think, like I've mentioned a couple times in the video, we tend to be more creative. And if you can find something that you really love doing that just tickles that part of your brain, especially if you can turn it into a job, that was a huge benefit. But having some sort of creative outlet, whether that's building things. For me personally, it was video editing, photo editing, digital stuff like that. Some of my other friends, they like developing code, really good coders. Some of my other friends, really talented artists, painters, things like that. But just figuring out how to use the creative side of your brain and to use it frequently is really beneficial. Another thing that I think can really help is surrounding yourself with people who are similar to you. For me, I try to surround myself with friends that also have higher levels of empathy and emotion. They tend to be a little bit more emotional. I think we just fit well together, I think that's part of the reason I've had a really good luck, finding good people and making good friends, is because they tend to be like me. I really just feel like I can trust them, and they have a higher level of emotional intelligence as well. And those are traits that I think are really valuable. And if you can surround yourself with people that have those traits, especially if they're really solid traits in you, that's a really great benefit. And this last one is you're probably going to scoff at a little bit because it's hard as hell. But honestly, meditation is stupidly good for you. It is so good for you. It is hard, and sometimes it feels painful. It can literally feel painful to do. But practicing not thinking, allowing your brain to shut down, and practicing that over time will do wonders for you. And it's almost like it kind of allows you to think. It's kind of like that hyperfocus, you become more in control of when you can turn it on or off. For me, that's what I found. And I also think that it's you have the ability to turn it on even on tasks that are boring. And it's because you've practiced that, you've done that mental work. And so even though it's painful, I'm telling you, I think of all of these things you can do, the two biggest ones are definitely physical exercise and meditation. And as I bring this video to a close, I just think it's important to say that some of the most influential people in the world had ADHD or neurodivergent traits. People like Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Edison, and Nikola Tesla. All those people changed the world, and they had similar traits that people with ADHD have. ADHD is not a glitch. There is nothing wrong with you. It's just a different operating system, and in my opinion, it could be a more beneficial evolutionary adaptation too. So if you relate to some of these things in this video, please drop a comment and let me know, especially if you have kids that are struggling. My mom and my dad, bless them, because I was an absolute menace until I was 25. But I also know, and you probably see this in your kid, that they also have one of the biggest hearts too. A lot of people with ADHD have really big hearts. So bear with them, be patient with them, and know that there's nothing wrong with them. And I think just like me, one day as you start to get older, you know, 30s, 40s, you're going to realize and be really, really grateful for ADHD. So if you found any value in this video, feel free to give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.